Let me reiterate the DG's appreciation to our panelists and to everybody who is participating, colleagues in the institute and other participants. It is difficult to overstate our security challenge at this point in time as a nation. It seems to be a convoluted thing. So I'm going to start by asking Honorable Gebu, that what exactly are we dealing with? What exactly is the nature of the security challenge confronting us? At some point, we talk about banditry, we talk about Fulani, Fulani herdsmen and farmer clashes. We talk about kidnappings. There's so many dimensions to it. So how does government conceptualize the security challenge? What are we exactly dealing with? Honorable Gebu, please.
Okay. So thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you for putting me on the spotlight for me, the first to respond. First and foremost, thank you very much for the opportunity. It is what is expected of NILS to do. It is late, but better late than never. These types of conversations are absolutely necessary in order to influence policy, to give trajectory and direction in terms of nation building. What are we dealing with? In my opinion, we are dealing with an implosion of security challenges that our horizon scanners failed to clearly see, identify, and perhaps begin to provide solutions maybe 20, 25, 30 years ago. What we have is a hybrid threat nature. I know everyone knows about asymmetric warfare, etc., but what we have is a hybrid threat. You have three circles. You have insurgency 1, you have organized criminal franchise 2, and then you have petty ordinary crime 3. Now, as a nation, our military forces have become very adept at degrading the first cycle, the insurgency. And they do that time and time again. They agitate the first cycle. So we dismantle the insurgency. Then it becomes the second circle, organized criminal franchise. That's your kidnapping, your human trafficking, your drugs, etc., your cattle rustling, etc., etc. We have not yet developed enough capacity to further degrade.
You still have the floor, Honorable. Please continue.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. I lost connection for a little while. So there is no follow-through. We have not been able to develop capacity to dismantle organized criminal franchise so that it becomes petty crime handled by the local police component. That's one. Then number 2, from a societal perspective, I am of the opinion that what we're witnessing in the Northeast, in the Northwest, and other parts of the country is a problem of the nucleus of society, which is the family. The family structure has been decimated. We have weaponized poverty, we have weaponized religion, we have weaponized ethnicity, we have weaponized Doctor, can you hear me now? Okay. So the decimation of the family unit, in my opinion, is the greatest contributor to all the security threats that we are facing. We talk about corruption always from the perspective of financial corruption. But the corruption we must deal with is moral corruption, which starts at the family unit. And the only way to fight moral corruption is to ensure that the family unit is strong, the family unit is cohesive, the family unit is on the straight and narrow. And how do we do that? We can only do that if the father can play effectively the role of the father and the mother can play the effective role of the mother. Now, if the father cannot provide for the family and there's a usurpation of functions where the children are expected to go out by any means necessary to come back home and feed the father loses the moral right to actually oversight the son. And if the mother expects the daughter to go out and do whatever she needs to do to come back and take care also of the mother loses that moral right to oversight the daughter. So first layer, we have to try deliberately to rebuild the family structure. Second layer, and this is what is very close to my own heart. We seem to be an entirely polarized society based on religion or ethnicity. So if you go to some of the states in the north, for example, north central and to a certain extent the northeast, you find adherents of a particular religious faith in one component of the society and the others in another segment of the society. So I'm glad the governor is here, and I would like to challenge our governors to come up with some deliberate reintegration mechanism where, for example, you have, let's say, harmony village, harmony community where you alternate Christian, Muslim, you build a mosque, you build a church, they have the same schools, they have the same markets. But the insecurity we're facing in the Northwest is something also that has different perspectives and different angles. I mean, there's so much to unpack, and this medium does not really provide the right platform to explain these things. But what we're facing in the Northwest is something that, if care is not taken, will eclipse what we're facing in the Northeast. And the crux of the problem here again is, Doctor, there is no consensus ownership of these problems. It is always seen as a problem of a particular people. So it's a Northwestern problem. It is a Northeastern problem. There is no consensus ownership. And as long as there's no consensus ownership where we see these problems as Nigerian problems, then it makes the function of today's topic, legislating for security, redundant. First, there has to be ownership. We have to accept that this is a Nigerian problem. When Boko Haram started, Boko Haram was seen by the rest of the country as a Northeastern problem. Even within the Northeast, it was seen as a uniquely Borno problem until it threatened to consume all of us. So one, there needs to be elite political consensus of ownership of the problems of Nigeria. Two, we must craft a strong identity. When President Muhammadu Buhari became president, I was hoping if he wouldn't achieve anything else, he would achieve this. And this is to craft a strong national identity based on a set of ideals built upon consensus. I am for restructuring, I am for whatever needs to be done, but it cannot be done unless there is consensus ownership. As we have this panel, if you were to ask everyone what they understand by restructuring, for example, everyone will say, yes, but we'll give you a different understanding. So we need to build consensus. Restructuring, yes, but what does it mean? What is the consensus ownership of the word restructuring? Now, perhaps this is what National Assembly could give us. National Assembly is a constituent assembly conference. They are there to represent everybody. So these are the types of discussions that I would like to see National Assembly champion and drive. Lastly, and I must say this, not because I was a member of the National Assembly, the National Assembly itself being the youngest component of the three arms of government, youngest in the sense that the legislature is only as old as from 1999, uninterrupted till now. So it is the least developed component of the three arms of government. So even National Assembly itself is in the process of understanding itself, its powers, its functions. So if we allow this evolutionary process to continue unchecked, perhaps after the next two legislatures, we'll have a very, very strong National Assembly. But National Assembly itself must understand its own powers, must understand its own functions, must understand its own being. Otherwise, having discussions that we would see internally as disruptive will never happen. National Assembly should be brave. National Assembly should confront issues, regardless of how controversial they may be. I recall when we were in the 7th Assembly, we shied away from debating Boko Haram. Whenever some of us who were seen as agitators would bring up the topic, they would say, no, don't talk about it. They will come, they will kill us. They will kill our Borno delegates. So we never got the opportunity to really discuss it as a parliament. So I would like to see a National Assembly that is fearless, that is adventurous, that is consolidated, that is comfortable in its own skin and does not have this crisis of self-confidence because the people they represent also do not understand them. Whenever there was a coup, the first to go is National Assembly. So people don't really understand the functions of National Assembly. In conclusion, Doctor, National Assembly itself needs to begin to consolidate its own powers. What do I mean by that? Having repetitive committees, House Committee on Defense, Senate Committee on Defense, House Committee on Finance, Senate Committee on Finance. This is one of the reasons why the powers of the National Assembly are rather watered down. We should begin to move towards having select committees of both houses So you would have one special select standing committee on defense, one special select standing committee on education, one special select committee on finance, and so on and so forth. And then National Assembly, again, must try and place square pegs in square holes. I give you an example. During our time, we had a retired senior colonel, very, very senior colonel, intelligence officer, but he was not given House Committee on National Security and Intelligence. He was given a different committee. So, and then my friend, Bello Matawalla Maradu, now governor, was given National Security and Intelligence. So if we allow you, Nils, and the public to a certain extent, if we allow National Assembly to assign and ascribe responsibilities based on party affiliations, political influence, lobbying from political quarters or ethnicity or whatever it is, we will never have value for our money. Now, we have how many governors in the Northwest who are former members of National Assembly? Bello Matola Maradun was my colleague. Speaker Tambuwal is now governor. Masari was speaker. So if they had legislated legislations that would have solved some of these problems that they are now facing, so we must understand we legislate today, but we are legislating for tomorrow, for 10 years from now, for 100 years from now. And yeah, there's many more to say, but I'll let other speakers to speak. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thanks a lot, Honorable Gebu. Okay, yeah, thanks so very much for that brilliant articulation. Let me go quickly to Sheikh Dr. Abubakar Gumi. One known position, the way it comes across, is that the security challenge we have is a response to governance issues, precisely to the lack of social provisioning. To what extent do you agree with the other dimensions, the family values, the lack of elite consensus, and all these other issues that Honorable Gebu has so brilliantly articulated? What do you think the security challenge really is? Do you still think people are responding to lack of social provisioning? Sheikh, please.
The chief host, good morning, everybody. Starting protocols. Actually, problems really clearly in the legislation, no, the present structure. The problem lies in the fact that we don't execute what we are supposed to do, and we don't try to diagnose our problems in such a way that it can give us power to tackle with them. First, when you talk about legislatures, and then even the way to get into the legislation is flawed. Are we having credible elections in Nigeria? How do we elect our legislators? How do you get elected in a party? You are talking about all corruption. So when you put together a group of people who are actually not representing Nigerians, they are representing themselves in an assembly, you don't expect anything to come out of it. That's why we have to go back to the drawing board. We have to make sure elections are credible. We have to make sure that we elect the people who are representing the people actually. So lack of representation or the true representation of people in the legislature, this is what breeds all the problem we have. Because once you see violence, as Martin Luther King said, violence is the language of the unheard. People are there suffering. People are there suppressed. They cannot get their voice across. They cannot get all the representatives in the assembly are not representing them, are not saying what people are suffering. So they end up in violence. And as a general rule, when you see an ethnic or a particular social strata or a group of people all committing a crime in form of violence, then you should know, you should not call it criminality. Then they are expressing themselves. They want to be heard. they have an agitation and nobody's listening to them, and they have nobody to complain to. And that's why we are having what we are having now, because there is no actual true representation in the legislature. So once we can correct, our elections can be clean, pure, that no two people will argue about them, then I'm sure Nigeria will be towards healing. So the assembly is very good. Yes, it can promote the laws, like there's agitation of state police, which is very good, but state police like that without a federal supervision, it will be a tool for governors to be suppressing people in their respective states. But if there's an like what we have in America, Federal Bureau of Investigation, where if there's any injustice in a state, you can take it up to the federal, then it's good to have a state police. And one thing, we need the military to deal with citizens' violence or citizens' uprising. We are misusing our military to protect the integrity of our nation. And when you put your military to tackle internal strife, then you create more problem. I'm telling you, what we have in Boko Haram, what we have in, what do you call it, the recent Northwest Hadas criminality is directly result of mishandling of the issue by the military, because it's not their job. It's not the job of the military. And when you even steer and make the problem worse than what it is, and that is exactly what we discovered, that the problem we have in this groups is that they were sort of hard handled by the military, and that led to a reaction in which people need to get bigger weapons. They need, what you call it, because there's an arm race, because the military fighting these people, and these people have a word to say. They have an agitation. They want to complain, but nowhere to complain to. So, except, for example, now, I give myself venture to see what, just to listen to what they are saying, just to listen, okay? And I'm getting a position from some authorities, and even the military population in Nigeria, agitating, crying, having grievances, and you don't want to listen to them. And then now we are talking about legislation. What legislation? Legislation will not work except people are ready to come and sit down and accept the authority. But when they have mistrust of authority, when they have the mistrust of those who are supposed to protect them, are killed drawing board. In short, I hope it addresses what.